Welcome back, students. In this video, a full stack web development. Now, in the previous video of this module, we have learned about CSS, backgrounds and borders. Now in this video, we'll learn about CSS margins and patterns. Now, a margin property are used to create the space and element outside of a defined border. And padding is used to create the space around an element content inside any defined border. So let's suppose we have designed in the previous video, we have coded this part and the output of this code is this. Now if I want to put space between this first div and second div, then I have to put the margin. But if I want to put space between this border, between this div and between this first line and second line, then I have to put the paddings. Now let's see practically how to use this margin and how to use this padding. So first of all, let's put some space and some margin in between these two divs. So for example, for that, let's select this first div and put a padding, put a margin, let's say margin top of 50 pixels, margin left of 100 pixels. Now let's see, the margin property must change the output of that particular div. Now you can see this margin is 50 and this margin is 100 over here. So this is how you can add some margin outside of that particular container or outside the border of that particular container. This is how you can use the margin property. Now let's say if I want to take some bottom margin and left margin, let's see the, now let's implement margin right of 100 pixels and margin bottom of 50 pixels once again. Let's save this and check the output. Now you can see margin from left and right is 100 pixels, margin from top and bottom is 50 pixels. So this is how you can set margin of any kind of div or any kind of container to implement some spacing between the borders. Now let's check the padding part. So if I want to create some difference and some distance between this tag and the border of that particular div, I have to use the padding part. So I'll write down. Now in the second part, let's add padding left of 50. Now you must see a distance between the border. Now you can see. So this is padding of 50 pixels from starting of that div to the starting of that element. So this is gap of 50 pixels. Also let's add some padding top of 100, padding bottom of 100 and padding right of 100. Let's say 50 pixels. So you can see your element must be, so you can see. Now let's add some background of this h1 tag and h2 tag to more clarify you what's the scenario. The h3 and p tag. So the h3, its background color aqua, and for this p tag let's set the background color not white, triple F is for white, let's set a wheat color. Let's save this and check out. So there is a padding of 50 and 50 onto the left and the right side, and padding of 100 and 100 on top and bottom. There is no padding in between the elements. If you want this, you can add. So let's say if I want to add this padding, so I'll just select this S3 tag and add padding bottom 50 pixels. So it will separate automatically the elements. Now you can see the padding bottom is 50 pixels. So this is how the margins and paddings will work in CSS. Now let's discuss the CSS height and width property. So CSS height and width property are used to set the height and width of the element, and there is also a CSS max width property that is used to set the maximum width of an element. So let's see how the CSS max width property and the CSS simple height and width property will work. Now let's see with the help of an example. So let's suppose I want to set height of this particular div. I want to fix height of this particular div. For that I have to go to the coding and set a height of, let's say, 500 pixels. Now let's check. So now you can see the height of this particular second div is completely increased, and it will be now the 500 pixels as we mentioned. So this is how the height property will work. Now let's increase the width of this particular div. So let me add the width of this second div. Let's say I want a width of 250 pixels. So let's save this, and you can see the output of that particular width is div is only the 250 pixels. Let's increase the height, and somehow let's increase the width also. That is too small for the code. So let's increase the width by 400 pixels. Also let's increase the height and make it 400 pixels. So it will give me a square div of 400 by 400. Now you can see a completely square div with the width 400 and with the height 400. So this is how height and width property of CSS will work on HTML containers. It will not only work on HTML containers, but you can also implement that on H1 tags, paragraph tags, images, or anything else. Now after this height and width, let's discuss CSS font. So you can see there is a lot of text written into that particular page. Now if we want to style this text, we want to change some style of this text, we can easily do that by using the CSS fonts. For that we have some predefined fonts. Let me show you. So these are some example predefined fonts. So let me open the code, and I want to change the text of this hello world. So let's make this paragraph. Now let's add a font family. So there are so many options you can choose. So let's now choose a font family of Arial. Let's save this. So the generic font family is sans serif, and the name of the font is Arial, and let's check the output. Okay, so now you can see the output of this hello world. The font of this hello world is changed. It is now Arial. Now let's change the output of this particular tag. So let me open the tag, and the element is H3 element. So I'll write down H3 and font family. Font family to be, let's say, let's try this. It's a very interesting font. Now you can check the output. So you can see a very interesting font appears. So this is how CSS fonts work. So this is the basic property of CSS which is required for the course. Now in the next video we'll start a demo project to understand and to learn how to implement these concepts which we have discussed so far. Thank you for watching this video.